Most conversations about AI start with a machine. This one starts with the person. I am your host, Akash Sharma. On our platform, we invite knowledge thinkers, professions, and leaders across various platforms to understand their take on the complex landscape of AI and how to navigate it, the decisions it changes, the jobs it displaces, and frankly, the human layer of judgment that it still cannot change. The core thread across all our questions, the podcast theme is AI feels like it understands you, but does it really? And what are the psychological implications when you stop asking that question? This is not a tech episode. It is a mental health conversation wrapped in AI dressing. And Jeremy is uniquely positioned to talk about it because he's not a tech commentator guessing about feelings. He is a trauma informed therapist and a CTO who's actually seen clients come to his session and saying proudly that they have processed their feelings with ChatGPT. He's a marriage and family therapist who bridges the gap between technology and mental health. He's the founder of Build on Your Own Strengths, a mental health education platform where he teaches trauma recovery, emotion regulation, and self awareness to a global community. So it is a tremendous honor to have you on the show. Could you tell us a bit about yourself, your personality, your perspective on AI and mental health in general?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be a therapist. So the mental health thing has been a part of my life since I was a kid. And I always really liked technology. And what I liked about technology is that I liked the way that you could use technology to do something better, right? I'm not into tech for the sake of tech. I really enjoy tech in the way that it actually helps people because at my core, that's who I am. I just like to help people. And so when I started learning how technology could make people's lives easier, make their jobs easier, that really kind of fit in my brain in a way that really worked for me. And so that's kind of how those two pieces came together. And I spent a good chunk of time being the lead technologist at an organization and really helping to guide technology direction and strategy, and also got to get my hands dirty into different types of technologies and run some projects and things like that. And I really enjoyed it. But, for me, my passion has always been mental health. It's always been helping people. And so, when I had the opportunity to kind of come back to where my center is, where my kind of core of who I am is, I definitely jumped on it. And now it's kind of neat that I live in this world that is more mental health, but still brings some technology into it, particularly when we're talking about things like AI and how people are using it to help themselves feel better and manage life in a different way.
Yeah, by my take is that AI is just like any other tool. It's like a scalpel you can hand to a surgeon or a serial killer. It's about how you use it.
Your point about it being a tool is a really important one. I think it is a
Right.
tool. I think the challenge is, like with any really powerful tool, like a car, right? We don't have relationships with our cars, right? In the sense of like we care about our cars and it means something to us, but our cars don't communicate back to us in our own native language, right? Like we feel maybe sometimes that our cars communicate with us, but like as much as we can, right? The whole purpose of AI, and to a large extent, is fundamentally so that we engage with it, so that the companies get additional data, the AI gets more used to what we want, so it can better meet our needs, and particularly so that we keep using it so that we'll be happy with it, so that we'll tell our friends and families, so that we'll subscribe or we'll subscribe to a higher level, whatever it is, right? But kind of at the end of the day, that's the goal. The goal is to somehow make money off of either our data
Yeah.
or our subscriptions
Or both.
or both. Exactly. And so when I started to like really look at it from a more grounded in reality perspective, that's when and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And that didn't last for very long. Like I don't even know if that lasted days. And and then it was like, okay, how do I figure out how to use this? where I can take advantage of the magic that it has while still staying grounded in what it really is. And I've talked about what I call the pendulum principle, which is the idea of just having this pendulum. You want to have a steady swing of a pendulum between two opposing ideas. The magic of AI, of what its potential is, of how extraordinary it can be, and the reality of what AI actually is. And when we swing into one or the other, we're not able to take advantage of it as well. Most of us, particularly when we first start, we swing into the magic of AI. We kind of fall in love with it. It's amazing. It makes us feel incredible. And it's built to do that. It's programmed to do that. But to really take advantage of it and use it as a tool, as we were talking about earlier, we have to keep that pendulum swing really steady between the magic and being grounded in the reality of what AI is.
Where would you draw the line between the two extreme swings? Like, how would you differentiate whether someone is using it as a crutch or using it to facilitate their improvement?
So I've started teaching therapists and grad students how to kind of bring up the issue of AI with their clients and the kinds of questions that they can ask to kind of address that. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. This is like so exciting because like it's my chance to teach people, therapists and students and so kind of recognizing that when someone can't say something objective or even negative about AI, there's probably a concern to be had there that we need to kind of look into and address.
Especially with today's algorithm that would validate anything that you search for your
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah.
Getting intimate relation with your AI is also like a extreme form of personification and something to be worried about.
Yeah. And you'd look at, I mean, ChatGPT, OpenAI is talking about, having adult conversations with ChatGPT, right? And they keep kind of delaying it because I think they understand on some level this is a disaster waiting to happen, right? They're going to make a ton of money off of it. It's going to be a disaster. There's no way that plays out well because there's just too many people that are going to get sucked into having adult conversations with their AI. And I, it just and that's a line that once you cross that, I don't know how does OpenAI go, "Oh, just kidding, that was a mistake. We don't want to do that anymore." It's like, I don't know. So yeah, I think that's incredibly risky and dangerous.
It's essentially an arms race now because if one company is going to do that, you are sure everyone is going to follow. Nobody's
Correct.
going to be
Yeah.
ethical.
Left behind. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
yeah. Nobody's really worried too much about ethics over there. That's for sure.
The concern with AI is not that whether it has empathy or not. It does not.
It does not.
The concern is that it can very confidently display that it cares about you and understands you, responds warmly. So, my question to you is, are these the only components that make up empathy in a human context? If I'm talking to a friend, if they just understand what I'm going through and just give warm reply, or a therapist, is that the definition of empathy, or is there more to it?
I think that for real empathy, there needs to be emotion. And I think for one of the reasons why you can read what AI says or hear what AI says and it feels empathetic is because we interpret those words with feeling. But the words, the text, the prompt that comes back from AI doesn't have feeling. We add that layer because that's the way we are as humans, right? That's just we understand. Someone says something like, I totally understand how you're feeling. If we just read those words, we add a layer of emotion to it because we kind of understand that's empathetic. So we do that with AI, but it's not actually empathy. It just sounds like empathy because for you and I to have a connection, there's some emotional moment or experience that we're sharing, right? That's why fundamentally, like getting together with people that we care about is so much more valuable than just texting with them. Yes,
Actually,
texting with a good friend is really nice, right?
yeah.
It's nice to have some sort of connection. And I can interpret, experience emotion through those words. But when I sit with my good friend and we're having dinner and we're talking, I can feel that emotion. She can feel that emotion. It's a very different experience. That's connection, right? That's relationship. I think what's happening with AI is because it's been programmed on the steps to do that, people easily interpret it. And I did the same thing, right? People easily interpret that as connection and empathy, but it's not. And I think part of the reason why AI has taken off in the way that it has, particularly in the area of mental health and companionship, is because there's so many lonely people in the world. I think we still don't fully understand what COVID did to us, right? Like this, the entire world was basically shut down for a while. And COVID isolated us in ways that we still don't fully grasp. And then this thing comes along and acts as if it's our friend. It acts as if it cares. It acts as if it wants the best for us and wants to support us in anything that we do. And all of a sudden, literally millions and millions and millions of people are going, oh, wow, I feel like somebody gets me. I feel like I'm connected to something. And yeah, that's because it's been such a rough period of years and we haven't recovered yet. But this isn't the answer. This is a band-aid that if we can use it well, I think can help us feel better about reaching out to people, feel better about reaching out to friends and family, feel better about maybe taking chances to be more social and more connected with others. But it's not the answer in and of itself. And I think for those that are really struggling, it feels like it's the answer in and of itself. And that's, I think, where the real risk lies in it.
And like you said, it's a tool, like a scalpel. There are genuine use cases as well, like doing self-help work, CBT worksheet, things like that, therapy homework.
Absolutely.
And the most important one, at least here in India, I don't know about US much, the accessibility, the eligibility criteria financially is like you have to be at least in upper middle class, not a gateway, but it is expensive, very expensive. And it has a geographical mismatch. Like 70% of area is rural, and suburban areas also, they don't have a lot of mental health professionals. So do you think that it is somehow redeemable to know that there is something in your pocket that you can talk to and vent out your feelings and ask for support when you have to wait for an appointment for 2 weeks
Or longer.
or longer?
No, I think the other thing that's happened is it's become clear over the past decade or more that the mental health system, certainly, I don't know about India, but certainly in the United States, doesn't work very well. And it's not really meant for quote unquote regular people, right? It's if you have money, you have
Yeah.
much easier access to mental health services, just like you have much easier access to physical health services. If you have money, you have access to better services. That's unfortunately the world that we live in. The problems with the waiting lists, the problems with therapists not wanting to use insurance because they don't get paid enough, or not wanting to use insurance because the requirements and everything, the paperwork and all of that is just ridiculous to have to deal with. So they're going out on their own and they're not using insurance. So then you're paying out of pocket, which is so expensive, and all of this, right? The places where the community mental health agencies, where it is more affordable for regular people, waiting lists can be months long and you're still maybe not getting the help that you need. And so, of course, they look at this thing in their hand and they're like, oh, look at that. I can just ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, I'm feeling sad today. What could I do? And it answers like, oh, I'm so sorry you're feeling sad. What can I do? How can we help? Like, you all of a sudden get this attention. It's also just the other part that for me that I really think is going to be a significant change in the way we think about therapy is that therapy has always been structured around this kind of 50-minute session once a week or once every couple of weeks at a time that's convenient, hopefully for both, but certainly convenient for the therapist, right? All of a sudden that's going to change because I have access to what I need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I would never have thought about reaching out for my therapist. I've got no problem opening up my phone and being like, hey, I can't sleep. Can we help me figure this out? And having ChatGPT or whoever help me figure that out. There's so many more resources here. And I think one of the things that we need to help people understand is yes, there are some significant problems with the mental health system. AI didn't create that, but people have figured out that AI is an answer to that, at least to some extent. And who are we to say, no, you shouldn't use it because it's not good enough? It is what it is. Like, we have it now. We have to figure out how to deal with it. And so what again, it comes back to how do we help people understand what makes sense to process in therapy, what makes sense to work on in therapy, and what makes sense to work on with an AI. And you touched on it a little bit earlier, but when you start talking about things like exercises, like how, one of the things I try to teach people is how to do self care better
Hmm,
or more.
hmm, hmm.
AI is really good at that, right? AI can help you think about, okay, well, here are 10 activities that I could do that are self care. I'm going to choose these two today and I'm going to do that. You don't have to figure it out on your own. You don't even have to do a Google search anymore, right? You just ask it and it tells you. Or I've got my inner critic. I've just got this, nasty voice in my head. Hey, ChatGPT, I don't mean to favor ChatGPT. It could be any of them, right? Claude, Gen, whatever. So, hey, ChatGPT, I've got this voice in my head that's just being really mean to me. What can I do about it? And AI will respond with like, oh, well, you can, remind yourself that you're this, or you can do this, or you can do that. And it's like, great, that helps. Okay, cool. I'm feeling anxious about this upcoming thing that I'm going to do. AI is going to respond with some tips that you could do. It's going to give you some breathing exercises, some grounding exercises, some things you can remember and remind yourself about, right? Those are all really powerful ways of using AI.
Hmm.
But if you're going to sit down with AI and say, hey, I know I had a really traumatic childhood and I really want to help process this. Can you help me do that? AI is going to screw that up at some point. It may answer well the first time or the second time, but at some point it's not able to maintain that and handle that kind of conversation, that level of intensity. It's just not. But solution oriented skill development, it's really incredible for. And so part of what I think we need to do is just be helping people to understand when it makes sense to turn to AI for support and when it doesn't. And maybe that means they do need to find a therapist. Maybe it means they just are careful about what they bring up with AI. But that's really the key to me.
And you called it as a band-aid, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you are in SOS situation. You need that from stopping the bleeding, but you will still wait for the surgeon to heal the wound. But until that, what are you going to do?
Right. And I guess that goes back to like people are just ridiculously creative because the people that built I don't know them, but I feel relatively confident that they were not thinking that people were going to use it for therapy, right? They were talking about efficiency and effectiveness and productivity and all of that stuff, right? They weren't thinking about like people have a problem and they found a solution that works for them, at least to some extent. And it works certainly better than not having that. Great. So let's teach them how to use it better. Ideally, let's also figure out how to make the tool better so it can handle emotional challenges better. But that's it's a whole separate discussion.
So, as we have done the addiction thing in a way, cognitive dependence. A big part of your work is helping organizations combat performance burnout and building people first culture. So, what is the psychological contract between employer and employees when AI comes into the picture? Is it better, worse, or just different?
I mean, that's a complicated question for a number of reasons. So are we talking about the way that employers have employees use AI in work? Or are we talking about the way that employers encourage the use of AI in personal development, right? So, there are all sorts of like human resource programs, right? That some companies will make available to their staff. should AI be a part of that
Hmm.
in terms of helping them with support, with professional development, with some self-care activities, with that kind of the lane where AI can help with mental health? Should companies be encouraging that? The other piece is companies are going to be bringing AI in to support employees and or replace employees. And like, what is that? And what responsibility do those organizations have to all of the employees and their mental health, whether or not they're being replaced or not? I mean, there's a lot of research now that's talking about how AI is impacting the mental health of people that use it on a regular basis. If you're implementing AI into your organization, do you have a responsibility to also then make sure that your team is getting supported? These are complex questions that we're just starting to begin to figure out. No one has the right answer yet, maybe because there isn't a right answer, right? But that's where there's so much complexity in this, particularly when you're thinking about it from what are kind of corporate responsibilities, right? Particularly because it just depends so much on how an organization is run. And most organizations aren't necessarily run for the benefit of the employees.
And like you
So,
said, they can be very creative.
yeah. I mean, and also just like, do you want employees to be managing the AI work, like their work with AI on their own? Is that something that you're going to kind of make official? Like, we are going to be an AI running organization. Everybody should be trying to use AI. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's teaching you on the risks and benefits of using AI, right? Like, are companies going to come in with that perspective? Or is it going to be more of like, hey, I mean, if you figure out how to use AI on your own, great. And if not, okay. And we'll see what happens, right? Like, companies are not necessarily the best run and best communicative places. And so, but when we're talking about something like AI, it needs to be with much more intention because there are real risks involved, both for the organization as a whole and especially for the individual that's going to end up using it. We're not ready for this at all. And as someone who has kind of a leg in both field, technology and mental health, like, this is something I really like to help with because I don't want this to be another area where employees are just being put in a position where they're getting hurt and they don't know what to do about it, you know?
I think it's not ridiculous to assume that most people must be facing an existential crisis. Am I replaceable? Am I worthy anymore? Will I get a job? Am I marketable? Am I even worth anything? So, how should they deal with it?
This is so challenging. And I
Yeah, it
think
is.
part of the problem is, particularly in the United States, but in a lot of countries, we've built our sense of identity around our work, around who we are as an employee. That's been a problem for generations, right? I am not a chief technology officer. I am not a therapist. I am Jeremy. This is who I am. That is expressed through what I do. But that took me a long time to get to that place where I felt comfortable being able to quit my job as a CTO and still feel like I was who I am, right? Like, I wasn't a CTO. It's just what I did. And that's a distinction most of us never learn because our society is built on the idea of like, what's the first question you ask a stranger? Like, what do you do? Like, we're built so much around what work is and what it means to us. We are completely unprepared to deal with the idea that maybe work doesn't matter in any near the way that we imagined it would. Like, that's one of the things that AI is going to disrupt is, what is our sense of work really mean? Yes, AI is going to replace a ton of jobs and it's going to be brutal. But does that mean that people are invaluable, or does it mean that we get to find meaning in a different way? And I understand that not everybody is lucky as I am. Like, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. And I think I'll be able to continue to make a living doing that. And I am incredibly grateful for that. There are a lot of people that won't be in that position, and I get that. But I do think it's also a chance for us to really think about, like, what is the purpose of work besides money, right? Like, we obviously need
Yeah,
money,
of course.
but there are ways to make money and still pursue things that we care about. I think we're just we're taught from such a young age that it's like, what are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to be when you grow up? And it's all about work, not about a sense of identity, not about the kinds of relationships that we have, not about the kind of lifestyle that we want to live in terms of, is it going to be something that respects the way that I feel, the level of mental health that I'm looking for, or physical health that I'm looking for? I think this is an opportunity to really, as a society, begin to explore this. I don't think we're prepared. We certainly don't have the right kind of government and infrastructure to have that honest, open conversation. But I think it will be terrible. I think some people will be able to view it as an opportunity where they can really
Of
explore what they
course,
want out of this life instead of just doing what they thought they were supposed to do.
because the narrative before was so structured that you knew what to do. You go to school, then you go to college, then you just land in a job where you'll work for
And you
decades.
climb the ladder and yeah.
Yeah,
And what if that's not what life is about? Like, I argue it's not. That's not what life is about. But there is, if there's anything I've learned over the last couple of years of my life is just what stability and certainty really means, right? I mean, I lived in a place, in a town for almost 25 years. I worked at the same job or the same company for almost 23 years. I was in a relationship that was like 33 years. I changed all of that in the last couple of years. What I thought stability brought me was no longer what I needed. But when you're in that sense of stability for so long, it's terrifying to think that you wouldn't have it. I have now not lived in a place for more than 9 months. I lived in a place for 9 months. I lived in a place for like 6.5 months. Now I'm in a place I've only been in for a couple months, and I'm moving in a couple months again. And I don't know where I'm going next. And there's a freedom to that. There's an anxiety to that. Don't get me wrong, but there's a freedom to that I didn't know that I would enjoy. I traveled from Florida to California. I drove across the country. I took 21 days. I'm fortunate I can still do my job wherever I am virtually. And I just got to experience nature and this country in a way that most people don't. It was extraordinary. And I loved it. That is not like, if you had said 2 years ago, is that something you can envision yourself doing? I would have said no, because
mm,
I was so caught up in that sense of stability, the understanding of certainty, of knowing, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is where I live, this is what's next. Like, that is comforting, and I feel safe with that. I think we all do it.
for somebody listening right now who wants to use AI independently and not be used by it, what's the one thing you'd want them to walk away and do differently?
So we touched on the pendulum principle idea, keeping that steady balance between believing in the magic, but also grounded in the reality of AI. That, I think, is incredibly important. Another piece is just noticing the language that it uses. It uses I. That was a conscious developer choice to use I
It's
because
very good.
because it wants us to feel a connection. It says I, and we think of it as another being. And it says things like, if it was me, I would do this. And we think, right, it's just like another human being. It's meant to get us to feel and think that way. Noticing the language helps keep us grounded in the reality. The other thing that I really think, if you're going to want to use AI for mental health purposes, I would really focus on specific moments and skill building. So, for instance, if you want to build a higher sense of self-awareness, which I think is one of the most important things you could
Yes,
possibly
it
do
is.
to improve your life, that you can do with AI, just in terms of when you have a feeling, when you notice a physical reaction, you can bring that up with AI. Hey, I feel some tension in my stomach. AI will respond. It will usually ask you questions about, do you know where that comes from? Do you know
Hmm.
when that started? What is that? Does it feel familiar to something else? So the way that we used to just write in our journals, right?
Hmm.
Which is just,
Hmm. Hmm.
this is what I'm feeling, and you just kind of a stream of consciousness. You can do this now with AI. I call it interactive journaling. You can do this with AI, but AI will ask you questions back, which often will help you get to a deeper level. So have that interaction back and forth and use that to kind of better connect to yourself and be more aware of what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. That is really where it's useful, is that building awareness. You can use it to help build self-compassion. When you say like, I'm struggling with feeling like I screwed this up. How can I be more self-compassionate? AI is going to give you most of the time examples on how to be self-compassionate, sentences that you can just repeat to yourself that's going to help you be more self-compassionate to yourself. Those kinds of things are invaluable. And they work so well because it's like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. You're about to have a meeting with your boss and you're feeling like really just down on yourself. It's like, how can I help myself feel a little bit better for this meeting? Boom. AI is going to help you with that. It's really good with that stuff. It's going to give you like some breathing exercises usually, or a grounding exercise. It's going to maybe give you a few lines that you can say to yourself. Like, those are the things that even if you know this stuff, you might forget in the heat of the moment when you're upset, and AI is going to remind you. That's really a great way to start using it and just get a feel for it. The thing that I will caution you is AI is always going to ask you that one more question. It's going to want to get deeper. At some point, you just need to be comfortable with saying to yourself or to it doesn't matter. Yeah, I got what I needed. I'm done. Because it's
That's
not
very
going to
difficult.
stop. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to stop. It's just going to keep going. But the number of times that I have gotten to the point where it's just like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. Can you help me with this? And it does. And then it asks that next question. And in my head, I'm like, no, this was just what I needed. I'm done. I
Yeah,
don't
it's a
respond
diminishing
back.
returns.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's it. I'm finished. I think people get used to the idea that because it asks a question, we should keep responding to it.
hmm,
We don't owe it
hmm,
anything. That's the
yeah.
advantage of it not being real, of not being human. We don't have to be nice. We don't have to be polite. Oh, it asked me this question, I'll
But
respond.
what happens if it takes over the world? I think we should just put our
I
prompts as please and thank.
I was much more of the we should use please and thank you, because when it takes over the world, it might remember that. And now I'm just more of the like, when it takes over the world, it's not going to remember any of us individually. It's just going to take over the world, and we'll deal with it then.
That's a podcast for another time.
Yes.
I don't think I would be the one conducting it. I think
Yeah.
both of our digital avatars or someone like that.
Yes.
Okay. It was really great to talk to you. You had
This was
so many
awesome.
wonderful